Welcome to the Brian Craig Show podcast. My name is Brian Craig, and this is where MAGA comes to talk. Welcome. Well, a lot has happened over the last couple of days. Donald Trump, United States, we just conquered a country, Venezuela, and it's an awesome thing. And we're going to talk about all that and what is going on and what the big picture is with Trump, why he did this, what his future plans are, and, of course, the meltdown that's going on with the lunatic liberals and never Trumpers that's always out there. Plus, we'll also be taking your live calls at 888-465-2631. Now, yesterday, we got the perp walk, right, of Maduro, and there was one video in New York City with Maduro that I'm not sure is real. Okay, I'm really not sure it's real, so I'll show it to you guys in a little bit, and you can let me know if it's real or not. But this perp walk has really caused major liberal meltdowns. I mean, the liberal, never Trumper, Trump derangement syndrome suffering, liberal tears of lunacy have been freaking out like they were on President Trump's first election night when he defeated Hillary Rodham Clinton, and all those lunatics were freaking out at the Javits Center. And the reason that this photo, but I'm going to tell you, I'll ask you first, and just think about this for a moment, then I'll tell you. Why do you think this perp walk of Maduro in New York has the never Trumpers, the Democrats, and the media freaking out at such a unheard of level? You know why? Why do you think? It's pretty simple. Because they have been fantasizing of a perp walk like that with President Trump, and they haven't gotten it. Even with all those fake arrests and everything, they didn't get the perp walk, and they want Trump in cuffs being escorted down a corridor to a jail cell, and they didn't get it, and that has them really freaked out. Well, keep fantasizing, liberals. That's a dream that will never come true, but if it gets you through your day, whatever. It's not going to happen. This is an amazing thing. So I want to talk a little bit about why President Trump has done this. It's for a number of reasons, okay? Taking Maduro and his wife in custody, and also talk about why he didn't arrest the rest of the senior government leaders and all of that. But the big picture that they have going on here is it's pretty simple. The Monroe Doctrine, which has been policy since President Monroe in 1823, and he made it policy, Monroe, in his State of the Union address in 1823. And it wasn't called the Monroe Doctrine at first. It was called the Monroe Doctrine a little bit before the Civil War. Sometime in the 1850s, they started referring to it as the Monroe Doctrine. And when I was in school, if you're my age or older, you know all about the Monroe Doctrine, because they used to talk to us and teach us about it in school every year. Even when I was in college and taking history courses in American history in college, they would talk about the Monroe Doctrine. And the reason that the Monroe Doctrine was taught so much to my generation and my parents' generation, it's always been taught, but it was taught a lot then because of the Cold War, because of Soviet expansion in Cuba and in Latin America. So there was a lot of emphasis put on the Monroe Doctrine, but it is policy, and the Monroe Doctrine has been U.S. policy since 1823. Now, I might be off by a year or two, but you check. I think it's 1823. And what's been going on, if you were to list the major problems that this country has been facing, right, prior to President Trump's first term and in the Autopin administration between his non-consecutive terms, if you were to write down the top problems, border, drugs, crime would be in the top 5, wouldn't they? Borders, drugs, and crime. Although drugs are crime, but you know what I mean. I'm talking about like the rapes and murders of people like Lake and Riley. And what all that is about is Venezuela is being used by our enemies, right? Russia, Iran, Cuba, and of course China, the CCP. And they're working with other countries too, but mainly Venezuela. And these enemies of America have been using Venezuela to weaken the United States. And you know what? They've been very successful at it. However, what they did resulted in President Trump becoming president, right? You know, they flood us with illegal drugs, which jams up our entire healthcare system, our criminal justice system, and messes up millions of Americans' lives. Even people that aren't junkies are affected by it because maybe it's a family member, or maybe they're a victim of a crime by some addict, right, who does some crime to get money for their dope. You know, I mean, that's a terrible disorder. The border issue, this is, you know, I talked a lot before President Trump settled the border issue, that the movement of people in these caravans to the United States, the illegals, this was done with military precision, with supply lines and everything. And it was because Russia, Iran, China, right? They were all behind this. And they have weakened this country, the United States, quite a bit because we're distracted dealing with all this crap. And it was all happening through Venezuela. And President Trump, let's use, I mean, I think this is the right word. We've conquered Venezuela. It is entirely possible that Venezuela very well may become a U.S. territory. Would you be surprised? Not a state. It's not going to be a state because they'd get 2 senators and they'd get a whole bunch of congressmen unless we broke it up into different states. But they very well could become like Puerto Rico or Guam or the U.S. Virgin Islands. They could become a territory of the United States. That would not surprise me in the long term. In fact, the Venezuelan people might like to become a territory of the United States. I think that'd be pretty cool. Would you guys like that? I'd like it. I don't know. It may not happen, but certainly they're an ally of ours now. And what President Trump is doing is many things with taking Venezuela. One, he's ending this border crisis forever, and he's put together a really solid alliance of MAGA countries in Latin America that are allied and part of this new alliance that Trump has put together. It hasn't been identified as that or called out as that by anyone other than me, but we have, well, Venezuela now, right? Venezuela, Argentina, Honduras, El Salvador, Chile. Did I leave anybody? If I left another one out, but we have at least 5 major Latin American countries, South and Central American countries, 5 of them, major ones, that are now tightly allied with MAGA leadership, by the way. In fact, Marco Rubio is the president of Venezuela right now. So, you know, these are countries where Trump-endorsed MAGA people are running the country. So, I mean, this is really an amazing thing, right? And it's to stabilize with the Monroe Doctrine, which has been U.S. policy for over 200 years. It just hasn't been enforced. It's been forgotten, you know, since the 90s, right? Maybe a little bit, maybe really since the Cuban Missile Crisis. We should have taken Cuba and kept it during the missile crisis. But regardless, the Monroe Doctrine is just something that's been forgotten, but it's been U.S. policy for 202 years. And President Trump's bringing it back. And so these problems that we're getting from Central and South America, from Latin America as a whole, the immigration problem and the drugs, that he's solving all of that. And, you know, another thing he's doing is he's moving the third world of Latin America, which is third world run by gangsters and drug lords and drug cartels. These leaders of these countries are just puppets, right? Like this Scheinbaum in Mexico. She's got to go. You know, the cartels are done. They really are done. If they had half a brain, they'd cash out and retire because they're done. And you know, it's a toss-up. What's going to be next? Is it going to be Colombia or is it going to be Mexico? Because President Trump has them both on his radar quite a bit. He talks about them a lot, and anytime he talks about Maduro and Venezuela. But he's taking the third world of Latin America, and he's making major moves to bring them into the first world like we're in, like Europe used to be in. Europe's declined with the EU and everything that's gone on over there. You know, Europe is, President Trump's not even concerned with Europe anymore. I haven't been concerned with Europe for a long time. Have you? No. So what he's doing is just absolutely spectacular. And when this new Latin American alliance of at least 5 MAGA countries that President Trump has formed with us is amazing. And, you know, Venezuela, remember, Venezuela is an OPEC nation. And China, Cuba, have both been getting oil basically for free from Venezuela. And, you know, Marco Rubio was talking yesterday in the press conference with the president and Pete Hegseth about how Cuba has really been running Venezuela. If you go to their agencies, he even pointed out their intelligence agency, it's all run by Cubans. So Cuba has been getting free oil from Venezuela. Now we have an embargo. They get oil from nowhere else in Cuba. Cuba's starving, right? How long can Cuba survive without that Venezuelan oil? Because it's cut off. They're not getting another drop. It's done. And Brian Kilmeade, I heard Brian Kilmeade on Fox this morning, and he was predicting that the current government of Cuba will fall within a year because they're going to have this fuel crisis, and they are likely to do that. It's just amazing. And this is why Marco Rubio is going to go down in history, I believe, as the greatest Secretary of State of this country. You know, if you think about it, think about all the secretaries of states that you can remember in your lifetime. What have any of them done that helps Americans other than Marco Rubio? Can you think of a single thing that a Secretary of State in your lifetime did that made anyone's life in this country better? I can't think of any other than Marco Rubio, who's stabilizing the Western Hemisphere and Latin America in particular and bringing them on board as allies to the United States. So, I mean, this is absolutely amazing. And, you know, what President Trump, by the way, if you're new to the program, my name is Brian Craig, and this is where MAGA comes to talk. After the first break, I've got some audio clips I want to go through that we'll discuss, and we'll get into some things. If you'd like to call in, the number's toll-free, 888-465-2631, 888-465-2631. It's a toll-free call no matter where you are. I might take some calls as the show goes on as well. But, you know, the things that President Trump is doing, in particular with what I'm talking about now, but everything he's doing are universally good things. I mean, I want you to think about this. A week ago Friday is when Nick Shirley dropped his Minnesota amazing reporting on the Democrat Somali operation where they've stolen, $9 billion in Minnesota. So all last week, the Democrats were defending the Somali $9 million thievery going on in Minnesota. Now, this weekend, it's already started and it's going to continue as the new week starts. What are the Democrats going to be doing? They're going to be defending a dictator, that a dictator needs to be put back in power. You know, in Venezuela, there's so much poverty and starvation going on in there. They're eating dogs. Venezuelan people love dogs. You think they like eating dogs? No, they're eating dogs. They're like those, that soccer team that crashed in the Andes. They're doing what they got to do just to survive. And it is a wealthy country. It's an OPEC nation. And think about this, and this is an important thing to remember. Venezuela is an OPEC nation that has a whole bunch of oil that hasn't been properly drilled because their system down there is so broken and, they don't have modern equipment and such. The United States has more oil than any other country on the planet, including Saudi Arabia. We have more oil than any other country in the world. You put the oil richness as an alliance of the United States and Venezuela together, OPEC is no longer relevant. With us and Venezuela as one, because they're part of the United States now. Let's face it. Venezuela is part of the United States and Marco Rubio is the president. Yeah, they left these people in power. That's just because, they know where everything is. It's just to keep things going. But It's part of the United States. And it's going to be that way forever. No matter what happens, Venezuela will be a part of the United States forever. And, you look at all this nonstop just violence around and around and around and around in the Middle East. The only reason anybody puts up with all that garbage is because the Middle East they have oil. Well, with the United States, that has more oil than any other nation in the world, together with Venezuela, we're our own version of OPEC. It makes the Middle East and all those troublemakers over there a lot less relevant and important. Like Candace Owens, right? It kind of cancels them out. Like Candace Owens has canceled herself out with all her insanity and stupidity. So, what President Trump is doing here in Latin America, sometime it was like through the pardon with that former president of Honduras. Now Honduras is part of the MAGA alliance of the United States with Latin American nations, right? Argentina, all this. What President Trump is doing is so amazing on a level that no one in the media, none of these pundits have been able to wrap their mind around at all. And it's a darn good thing. Another thing is the Democrats that are taking the wrong position on everything, right? And you hear a lot, there's like this catchphrase that all the pundits use. These are 80-20 issues, and the Democrats are always with the 20%. These are 99.9 to 0.1 issues, okay? With what President Trump and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and General Raisin Cain have done in Venezuela, the Hispanic vote is now and forever a Republican vote. The Democrats, bye-bye. I've seen on social media Trump-hating Hispanics who say, I'm on the Trump train now, right? And you probably have seen it too. In Latin America, do you remember, those of you that are old enough, remember when the Berlin Wall came down? It was a big deal, wasn't it, when the Berlin Wall came down? That was crazy, and it happened really about as quick as this. It happened like overnight. It was crazy. Well, in Latin America, the conquering of Venezuela, arresting Maduro and his wife, in Latin America, that is the equivalent of the Berlin Wall falling. What the Berlin Wall collapse meant for Europe, Maduro's arrest means for all of Latin America. Because he wasn't just a fake president of this very important oil-rich country. He was a drug cartel leader, and maybe the biggest drug cartel leader because he had China and Russia and Iran and the Islamic terrorists working with him, and Cuba. Okay? So he was probably bigger than El Chapo by a whole bunch. Also, think about this. China's freaking out right now. It may not look like it on the outside, but China is going through a lot of economic problems. They're very overextended, and they have no oil. That's why there's been this big push towards green crap, right, and electric cars. It's all a big push by China because they don't have oil. And they're getting oil, they were, no longer, it's done. They've been getting oil for basically free from Venezuela for a long time. That's over now. That's over. So how will Cuba and China move forward without this free oil? Their entire economies, especially Cuba, because they're the ones that won't be able to hold on at all. But Cuba and China's entire economy is based around getting free oil, or almost free oil, from Venezuela. That's over now. Big time, it's over. Another thing that President Trump talked about in his press conference yesterday, which was absolutely amazing, is something I've heard him talk about in the past. Not only is he going to take back the property from American oil companies that was seized by Chavez and Maduro and these lunatics, but Venezuela oil is going to pay them back and this country back for everything they've cost us. And when President Trump says Venezuela is going to pay us back for all that they've cost us in oil, do you know what he's talking about? He's talking about the lives that have been lost, the expense of the criminal justice system, the damage that these Venezuelan gangbangers that Maduro has been sending up here, causing all this mayhem and murder and all of this. They're going to pay us back for all of that. And I'd mentioned this on another stream over the weekend. Before he was president, President Trump used to be on Neil Cavuto all the time. Hated that guy, Neil Cavuto, on Fox. And there was I can't remember the specifics. It's been many, many years. It's been over 10 years since he came down the escalator. And this was before he was running for president, I'm pretty sure, the first time. And I can't remember if it was Obama or President Bush, but anyway, we were giving a whole bunch of money to Iraq. And President Trump told Cavuto, he says, why are we giving money to Iraq? We've spent billions of dollars liberating their country. They have a ton of oil. They should be paying us back, not giving them more money, and they should be paying us back in free oil, right? The debt that they owe to this country for liberating them, which was in the billions at that time. Well, that's what's going to go on with Venezuela. They're going to pay us back for all the money they've cost us, which, by the way, would be that wall and all kinds of other things, right? The Great Wall of Trump on the southern border. So what Trump is doing here in the big picture is just absolutely huge and just absolutely amazing. Now, I want to talk, we're going to take a break. If you're on hold, stand by. I got a lot to cover here. If you'd like to call in, the number's toll free, 888-465-2631, 888-465-2631. I want to talk about Jupiter Joe Thomas and annuities. You know, I've heard about annuities my whole life, and I didn't understand them at all until I met Jupiter Joe Thomas. He explained them to me, and after about 60 seconds, I'm like, why isn't everybody in annuities? You know, when you invest your money into an annuity, no matter what happens in the stock market, there could be a Great Depression. Your nest egg is safe. You don't lose a dime. Plus, you're guaranteed an income stream every month for the rest of your life. You're giving yourself a pension. It's absolutely amazing. There's all kinds of different types of annuities too, depending on what your goals are. There's one called an income doubler, right? If you or your spouse have a health issue, that your monthly income is doubled. So if you're getting $2,000 a month, you get $4,000 a month. It's amazing. There's many other types of annuities. Give Jupiter Joe Thomas a call and take advantage of the no-charge consultation that you can take advantage of no matter where you are in the United States. If you're here local, yeah, you can go to his office. But if not, you can do it over the phone or through Zoom. And Joe Thomas will put together a custom proposal just for you. These are not cookie cutter. A custom proposal just for you based on your situation and your goals. Here's the number, 561-743-0999. 561-743-0999. If you missed the number, just go to his website. It's the easiest website to remember, jupiterjoe.com. That's jupiterjoe.com. All right, we're going to take a quick break and be right back.
In the holy city of Helvar, oaths aren't just spoken, they're carved into stone and burned into flesh. From author Chase Powers comes an epic fantasy where faith is weaponized, mercy is dangerous, and the truth has a long memory. Star Forged Oath, available on Amazon. Kale Ren wants only 3 things: to stay alive, get paid, and avoid anything resembling belief. Instead, he's bound to a sentient star-forged sword that remembers every broken vow and hates the men who called themselves holy. As sacred trials turn bloody and the city's most revered legends begin to crack, he's forced to choose between survival and exposing a lie powerful enough to burn a kingdom. Star Forged Oath is full of sharp banter, found family, corrupted holy orders, and magic that always comes at a cost. If you like swords that argue back, heroes who question the gods, and stories where mercy is the most dangerous weapon of all, Star Forged Oath is your next must-read book. Available right now on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and free with Kindle Unlimited. Order your copy right now and step into the crater. Ever wanted to grab a text from a screenshot and send it without having to log into a site or app that's plastered with ads? Free text from image.com keeps it simple. No sign-in, no faff. Drop a pic, copy the words. Try free text from image.com. Do mealtimes feel more stressful than satisfying in your home? You're not alone. Between busy schedules, picky eaters, and rising grocery costs, eating healthy can't feel impossible. That's why Dennis Heikkinen wrote the family-friendly Healthy Eating Cookbook, available on Amazon. This practical, easy-to-use cookbook is packed with over 100 simple, nutritious, kid-approved recipes designed for real families and real life. Every meal is easy to prepare, budget-friendly, and made to help your whole family enjoy breakfast, lunch, dinner, and even snacks without spending hours in the kitchen. Whether you're a busy parent, a beginner cook, or just trying to build healthier habits at home, the family-friendly Healthy Eating Cookbook gives you the confidence to cook with ease and bring joy back to your life. Order your copy right now on Amazon and Kindle, paperback, and free with Kindle Unlimited. The family-friendly Healthy Eating Cookbook on Amazon.
All right, we're back. I'm Brian Craig. This is the Brian Craig Show podcast. The Brian Craig Show podcast is available wherever you get podcasts. If you want to catch the program in video form and live when I'm taking calls, just go to my YouTube channel and search for the Brian Craig Show. All right, let's go. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Brian. This is Nick out of Baltimore.
Hey, Nick. What's up?
Good Sunday afternoon to you and everybody else. And Happy New Year. I want to mention something with regard to the Monroe Doctrine you're talking about. And I've been watching a documentary that my sister bought off of Apple TV, I believe. Mm-hmm. It's about the Kennedy assassination, and I've been looking at the Kennedy assassination for years. I was 6 years old when that happened. Mm-hmm. And I've been following it, and I know that's not really your topic, but I'm going to tie it in with what you're talking about. This latest documentary I saw is stating that Castro, of course I've heard this for years, that Castro was involved in the Kennedy assassination. Well, these two guys investigated, this one guy worked for the CIA, and there were other investigators, and they came up with the idea that Castro, somehow, he was involved with Alpha 66?
Yeah, I've heard all that.
Danny Castro.
Yeah.
Right, and there were some rogue members that he infiltrated that group with. Now, you mix that with the Bay of Pigs people who were mad at Kennedy for not giving them the backup. It's plausible that Oswald was involved with them.
Yeah, maybe.
At the behest of Castro. Mm-hmm. And that he also had an elaborate system hooked up where he could listen to the local radio from
Dallas. How's that connected to, you say you're going to connect that to what's going on now with Venezuela?
Well, here's how I'm connecting it. The Monroe Doctrine. If it can be really proven that Castro was involved in this, through the Monroe Doctrine, Cuba is ours,
Yeah, I guess.
Like Venezuela.
Well, the Monroe Doctrine, before Trump, the last time I think the Monroe Doctrine really has been used and talked about in any real sense was the Cuban Missile Crisis by Kennedy. That's what they used for the blockade of Cuba and all of that. But there's no doubt that Cuba, China, Russia, Iran, that they've been using Venezuela to weaken our country, and it's been going on forever, our whole lives.
Well, and Cuba has been involved in the terrorism things with Iran. They've been funding Hezbollah. They're involved in that. So all these countries, Venezuela is sending this poison over here.
Yep.
So yeah, I think as you've said, now Marco Rubio is running Venezuela, which is a great thing. By the way, I love Marco Rubio.
Yeah, me too.
He's great. But you're right. And what triggered my call was when you said they're predicting Cuba's government will fall.
Yeah.
It will fall.
Without oil. They can't survive without oil.
Well, they shut the power off. They only run the power for 3 hours a day over there.
Yeah, it's going to be no hours a day soon without any energy.
Yeah. So that's my point. The whole thing, we can use that. Taking the Kennedy assassination, that's added to it. But
yep.
I want Cuba to be a territory.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I don't know why. We conquered Cuba in the Spanish-American War. That's how we got Guam. That's how we got Puerto Rico. I don't know why we didn't keep Cuba. I don't know. All right, hey, Nick, it's good to talk to you. Yeah, take care.
Hey, take care.
All right, take care. Nick's always adds something of interest to the program. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, take care.
My name's Craig. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right. How are you? Can you turn down the volume of whatever device you're listening to me on, if you don't mind?
Yes, sir. How's that?
All right, better. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I just want to know where Trump got his authorization to do this alleged invasion.
There was no invasion.
What do you mean there was no invasion?
There was no invasion.
No invasion? What do you mean? We invaded Venezuela.
Nope. There was there was a small military action that was taken to arrest someone, but there was no invasion.
So basically what you're saying is that Trump has no authorization to do this. Am I correct?
He does not need authorization. In fact, when's the last time the United States declared war? When is the last time Congress declared war?
Well, first off, you're supposed to get permission from
when
Congress.
When is the last time the Congress declared war?
Was World War II.
Correct. So, we've been involved in all kinds of conflicts that included many times full-scale invasions. There was no war declared. And no, for these types of actions, they don't need the authorization of the Congress.
Oh, they don't.
Nope.
So basically, we can go into any country and take out any leader without getting permission from we the people.
Yep, no, from the Congress. The people gave President Trump the presidency. We the people authorized President Trump to be president when we elected him. So he has the authorization of we the people. Maybe not you, because you sound like a guy that didn't vote for Trump. You voted for Kamala Harris? What kind of man are you? What kind of man voted for Kamala Harris?
I never once said I voted for Kamala Harris.
Well, who'd you vote for?
1996.
Who'd you vote? You haven't voted since '96. You're not even participating in the process. So why are you griping to me?
The process is already rigged. We already know the process is rigged, sir.
President Trump was just reelected to a second and non-consecutive term, which shows that the system works. But,
How does it work, sir?
President Trump was reelected.
When you have no other alternative to Kamala and Trump, how does it work?
No, there were all kinds of other options. There was Nikki Haley. There was Marco Rubio. There were lots of other options. Hey, listen, I'm going to move on because I'm bored with you.
Okay.
All right, take care. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Brian. Hey, it's Jonathan from Alberta. How you doing, man?
Now, turn down the volume. Turn down the volume in the background.
Yeah, I did that. Sorry about that.
All right. What's up, Canada?
That better? Yeah. So, with everything that's happening right now with Maduro, so could we have that happen to Carney, please?
No.
Canada?
No.
No, we really need that. Though.
No, we're not gonna take her. I appreciate the call. Oh my goodness, you're on the. Oh, hold on a second. Let me answer some of these other lines. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Brian from Salt Lake, Utah.
Hey, Brian, what's up?
Hey, not much. Calling about what I think is on everyone's mind is what happened in Venezuela.
Pretty awesome, huh?
Well, on the one hand, Maduro's not a great guy.
No. Yes.
So glad he's out of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Not really a fan of how we achieved that, though.
What really? What do you mean a 2-hour operation where no American lives were lost and no equipment was lost, and we took down this dictator that's responsible for God only knows how many people are dead because of Maduro. Lincoln Riley is dead because of Maduro. How many other Lincoln Rileys out there have been raped and murdered because of Maduro in this country?
Well, that's
Yeah, well, other than that,
I don't want to. Listen, I'm not trying to litigate the fact that he was a bad guy.
He's an evil man. He is an evil man who's been attacking this country.
Well,
he's been attacking this country nonstop since he's had authority.
Okay, so if that's the case, then why did we not declare war?
Because we don't. There's no need to declare war. We went down there. He got arrested, and that's it. Why are we going to go?
Okay,
the people. Venezuela's not our enemy. They love us in Venezuela.
Okay.
They're part of the United States now. They're a territory of the United States right now. Venezuela and the Venezuelan people love us.
They're absolutely not.
Okay, tell yourself
First of all, Trump did. Yeah, I mean, Trump said that, right? But then Marco Rubio got on the morning news rounds and contradicted what you're saying.
What did he say? What did Marco Rubio say that contradicts what I'm saying?
I mean, did you hear what he actually had to say?
You heard it. You heard him. You heard Marco Rubio. You heard Marco Rubio say something that contradicts what I'm saying. What did he say? Yeah, I watched Marco Rubio today.
Okay. Well, he said he was asked directly by Kristen Walker on Meet the Press if the U.S. is at war with Venezuela. He said no.
No, we're not at war.
He said
no.
Okay, and then he said that he was asked that President Trump said that we're going to run the country. What does that actually look like? He says, well, we're not going to actually do that. What we really mean by that is we're going to direct the policy.
It's the same thing.
Who's actually in charge of the country?
Oh, my goodness. We are.
Who's actually...
Donald Trump is in charge of Venezuela.
He is absolutely not.
All right, let me explain something to you. Okay, let me explain something to you. Are you familiar with a man by the name of General Patton?
Yes.
Do you know who he... Okay. After the war ended, before he died, he was the military governor of the American sector of Berlin, right? When it was split up into different sectors. And what he did became the model for the other countries and the other sectors. The former excuse me. You're about to learn something. Yeah. I know you don't want to learn something because if you learn information, you can't justify in your mind your dislike of President Trump. When we took over Germany, you still have to run a country, right? Excuse me. Can you please, stop interrupting while I'm speaking? We left in charge of the power companies, of the road, all the agencies of government, former Nazis. Were left in charge of all these different agencies of government. And these former Nazis administered everything under American administration. Why do you think we did that in Germany at the end of the war? Why did we let these Nazis run everything under the administration of General Patton? Why did we allow that? Why do you think?
Tell me. You're educating me. Tell me.
Okay, so you don't know. Because they know how to run the electric company. They know how to run the water works, right? So what I saw what Marco Rubio said. It might be in one of the clips I play coming up. We're leaving these people in charge because they know how to run everything. You don't get rid of the file clerks. But we are running and governing the country. It's under our authority.
Are you saying that the vice president, who's now the acting president of Venezuela, is a file clerk?
Yes.
By the way, your analogy falls apart pretty quickly.
No.
Your analogy falls apart pretty quickly because the fact is we were at war with Germany.
No.
So are we at war with Venezuela? Did we defeat them in a war?
No, don't try to be me and walk me down a garden path and best me.
Okay,
when you take over a country. If you take over a country,
we haven't not taken over the country.
Yes, we have. When you take over.
So you want to have it both ways because on the one hand...
No, I only go one way. I mean, I don't go both ways. I'll tell you that right now. When you take over a country, you don't get rid of all the people that run all the agencies inside the government, or the country would fall apart. You leave everybody in place under our administration. That's what Rome did, right? Rome would conquer a country, but they would let them govern themselves so long as they paid their tribute. And that worked well for a while. All right. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Brother Brian, IB.
Hey, IB, hold on. Let me answer some of these other lines. Hold on. All right, go ahead, IB.
these people, like these young people calling you, has no grasp of reality as to what they're saying. This young kid from Venezuela, to me, he's like a Gen Z. He has a flag around him. He's saying, where were you liberals? Where were you guys screaming about, all of the chaoticness that was going on? Like someone called the other day about eating cats and the dogs and so forth. How quickly they forget about this. If when the American homeland or National Guard ran over people with their vehicle in America, that would be so outrageous. Maduro had his people run over people because they protested. This kid says, we didn't elect him. He stole the election. And when they protested, they ran him over. They put people in jail. The girls had to give up their bodies just to eat, just to have food for what he's done. He said, no. He said, they did not come and kidnap and bomb him. They simply removed the dictator that we didn't want in the first place.
That's right.
Why do you liberals so stupidly? These people are out in the street in masses, bigger than Tiananmen Square, bigger than Times Square times 20 on New Year's Eve night. All those people are out on the street praising that he's gone.
Well, you answered your own question, IB. It's because they're stupid, right?
It's incredible. And
look at that last rocket scientist, that brain surgeon I was talking to before you from Utah.
Yeah.
They think they're so enlightened and informed. They don't know. Hey, I appreciate the call, IB. You made some good points. All right. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Good afternoon, Brian. Doc from beautiful Texas.
Yes.
It's a beautiful afternoon, Don.
Yes.
It's a beautiful afternoon.
Uh-huh.
Well, hey, I just want to say, you were saying what kind of man vote for Kamala? I'm not sure I said her name. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris, yeah.
Kamala. We're not gonna go back and forth.
What about Willie Brown's girlfriend? We'll both agree on that. Willie Brown's girlfriend?
What about? Okay. The type of man that votes for Kamala Harris is the man that cares about this country. And what kind of person that votes for Trump that was a pedophile? His name's mentioned over 1,000 times in Epstein files.
Really, you've read all those? You've read all those files? Come on, stop with your slanders. Enough. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from? By the way, anytime.
Hi, Brian. This is Dave in Royal Palm.
Hold on, Dave, for a second. Anytime a liberal says Epstein once, that's their surrender. They got nothing when they say Epstein. That's kind of like when they got nothing to say and they're desperate, they mention Epstein. All right, go ahead, Dave in Royal Palm. What's on your mind?
I was listening, and you had a caller, obviously somebody that doesn't like Trump, talking about basically trying to say he's going to be a dictator there, I think his point is. But one thing you got to keep in mind is if you go into a country like that and take the leader away, you have to have, the population covered.
Yes.
They're innocent. And you have to make sure it's administered right. You can't just turn it over to the vice president.
That's correct.
So you got a moral obligation to do that. And I don't think lefties understand morality. I just don't get it.
It's not just morality. It's it's common sense. When you may not have heard the whole conversation. I was talking about how when we took over Germany at the end of the war, all these former Nazis we kept in place to run the government agencies, like we're doing in Venezuela, because the people that run the roads company, they know how to work the traffic lights. If you take everybody, everything would collapse. So you've got to keep the bureaucracy in place to keep the electric company going, the street lights going, the schools operating. I mean, it's common sense, but liberals are just stupid people, and they don't understand these basic common sense things that we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, if we just did that and walked away and left that vice president to take over, she'd just be doing what the cartels were telling her to do anyway.
And don't be so sure she's going to be there very long. She's not a legitimate vice president.
Oh, I'm sure, and I think it's just appearance. Just go by what it would be in succession and so forth, and just keep an eye on her until they get the right people.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, by the way, last week I heard you mention what happened to hats, And
hold on, let me answer these lines, then I'll go back. And I'll just what that was about when men used to wear hats all the time. Not like I'm wearing now, like a ball cap. When men would wear a hat with their suits.
Yeah, well, what it was is in the 60s, they started selling cheap sunglasses, and that replaced the need for brims. The brims,
I guess that makes sense.
Good
point.
It was the decade of summer, the beach, ball games, barbecue, picnics, and sunglasses like Ray-Ban became available on every counter everywhere.
Oh,
cheap.
I see.
And
So before that, sunglasses were like expensive and a luxury. I did not know that.
they were a little bit more expensive, and pretty much, and you pretty much saw bohemian types wearing them in the 50s.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's like I was talking to my wife. I watched a documentary on YouTube yesterday. They were talking about, it was a documentary on the history of T-tops, which was really interesting. But they were talking about convertible cars, and convertibles kind of went out of fashion because cars started getting air conditioning. So people didn't want the convertibles because of all the road noise and everything when they had AC in their car. And that's the interesting thing about history is you follow it step by step and you see how things became the way they are, right? Sunglasses got cheap, men stopped wearing hats. Air conditioning was in cars, convertibles weren't all of a sudden every car. It's that's why I find it interesting. Hey, listen, I appreciate the call.
It is.
You made a good point. Thanks for
that.
that.
You take care. Have a good one, Brian.
All right, take care. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Jay from San Diego. How's it going, Brian?
All right.
Happy New Year. Happy 2020.
Yes. 2020. It's 2026.
Yeah, I said, is that what I said?
You said 2020. You
Yeah,
okay? Were you in a coma? Just get out of prison?
Yeah, I might have been.
Yeah. What's up?
Just looking towards the future. So, I do have, here in San Diego, I have quite a few Hispanic friends, and the talk around the TikTok and all this whatnot is what countries or what. So, like, we've sent a message that, hey, do you think that this can be used to either persuade other countries to kind of fall in line more?
Yeah.
Or who's next? Like, I'm wondering, because a lot of people are saying, "Do us next."
Well, I'll tell you who
they want to be liberated too.
I'll tell you
right?
who might be next. The next leader that we remove, Zelensky, who's prolonging this war and lying to Trump and won't end it. I could see Zelensky being on his way out. And I'll tell you, I saw Zelensky today. He looked nervous.
Oh, that's an interesting case.
And I was talking last week before all this happened, when Zelensky came to the White House the other day, came to Mar-a-Lago last week, not the way he was at Mar-a-Lago, President Trump was talking about this Ukrainian general that he had never seen before, and he says, this guy is right out of central casting. I didn't get to see him, but I would imagine Trump is thinking, well, why don't we make that guy the president and end this war? Because Zelensky won't end it. But I would say probably Colombia and Scheinbaum in Mexico are also very concerned right now.
Yeah, I have some friends that actually their parents still live in Mexico, and yeah, they're a little worried after seeing this. They're thinking, hey, like, could this happen here? Could this?
Well, why should they be worried? Aren't they tired of the drug cartels running their country?
Yeah, they good point. Yeah, exactly. But bombs do go off close by where you are either way, whether you want it or not. It's the type of thing I'm saying. So they are thinking, hey, mom, stay inside. Like, they're starting to think like, hey,
we're not going to be bombing civilians. It's just like this. Let me tell you, with what's happened with what's happened here in Venezuela with Maduro, the amount of intelligence we get. He's the top drug cartel guy in all of Latin America. We know where all the cartel people are now. All of them. We got their phone numbers from his freaking house. We got Maduro's cell phone that has all the cartel leaders' personal phone numbers in it. Not those burners, the real numbers. We know where they are. And believe me, they are targeting their homes and their drug dens and their drug factories all over South America right now, and Mexico and Central America. And anything we do will be surgical strikes directly on the cartels. I mean, I would imagine we gathered incredible amounts of intelligence on the cartel locations from this.
Yeah, and I'm hearing that Cuba, they're not going to have any oil. I mean,
correct.
Wasn't Venezuela funding funding Cuba and some of these other countries.
All Cuban oil, all their oil, about 99% of it comes from Venezuela. It's cut off now. No more oil from Venezuela. They're going to collapse. That's good.
All right. Well, I just my worry too is that maybe Mexico so if we did. So what if some of these countries join together and retaliate? That's the other.
How are they going to retaliate? They've been attacking us for years with their Trende guys, their MS-13ers, their drugs.
Yeah.
They've been killing. President Trump says 300,000 or more Americans a year have died from Latin America attacks on this country. So we've had 10 9/11s every year for, 50 years? So they're already attacking us and killing our people.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate the call. Good call.
Okay. All
right. Take care. I want to tell you guys, this is very important. If you're in the state of Florida and you need roof replacement or repair, call Tom Laporta. Tom Laporta at Laporta Roofing is a good MAGA guy who will never sell you a roof you do not need. And what that means is if you need just a simple repair, he'll do it. I've never heard another roofer say that they'll do a simple repair. In fact, most roofers will tell you flat out they don't do repairs. Tom Laporta does. He works with every type of structure. He can handle the job of any size, whether it's one home, one condo, one office building, or some HOA with over 450 units, and he covers the whole state of Florida. Give Tom Laporta a call. This number rings directly to his cell phone, so you could text him as well. And his number is, anytime you hear me talk about Tom Laporta, I just grab my cell phone, I look at the last text message. Tom and I were texting over the weekend. I look at my last text and pull it up. So here it is, 954-604-4602. 954-604-4602. And online, laportaroofing.com. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, there's a whole bunch more to talk about. If you'd like to call in, the number is toll-free, 888-465-2631. We'll be right back.
Are you struggling with unanswered prayers, facing doubt in your faith journey, wondering if God is really listening? There's a transformative truth waiting for you. The groundbreaking new book reveals how God's answers to your prayers, according to His will, is always yes. Not sometimes, not maybe, always. God said yes. He never rejects, only directs and redirects. From author Gaten Glover Sr. This isn't just theology, this is life-changing. Discover how this perspective can transform your job search with confidence that God's affirmative answer is already unfolding. Strengthen your faith during health crises and personal challenges. Guide your parenting through disappointments with renewed wisdom. Navigate ethical decisions at work with spiritual clarity. Revitalize your Monday mornings and reconnect with your purpose. Whether you're a new believer grappling with faith, a longtime Christian facing spiritual burnout, someone in a season of doubt, a parent, professional, or seeker, you need this fresh lens on God's will. Through biblical narratives, personal stories, and theological insights, explore how God communicates with you, always aiming towards your ultimate good and growth. Find peace, discover purpose, experience God's yes. Available now. God said yes. He never rejects, only directs and redirects. From author Gaten Glover Sr. There's also a study guide that comes with the book that you can download. A transformative guide for your spiritual journey. For those who love Christmas cozy mystery and suspense, best-selling author Riley Blake brings new stories and old favorites with festive novellas like Christmas Presents, a cozy retirement mystery novella that includes some of Riley's family favorite holiday recipes. If you're a fan of cozy mysteries with spunky seniors, you'll enjoy the Christmas story at the heart of this special novella. When several children lose their parents due to a freak accident, Mary Louise, Pearl, and Opal offer to stay with the family until after Christmas. The sleuthing women soon discover a written threat that the couple kept hidden in their belongings. As they hunt for motive, clues, and suspects, they uncover a century-old vendetta. Soon, their goals shift from crime-solving to crime-stopping as they vow to protect those who were left behind. Now available on Amazon, with new Christmas titles set to debut later this month. Just go to Amazon.com and search Riley Blake.
All right, we're back. I'm Brian Craig. It's the Brian Craig Show podcast. The Brian Craig Show podcast is available wherever you get podcasts. Just search for The Brian Craig Show. I'll pop up. And if you want to catch the show live in video form, where I'm taking calls, go to YouTube and search The Brian Craig Show on YouTube. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from? You're on the air. Once, twice. All right, you missed your chance. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Brian, it's Patty from New Jersey. How are you today?
All right, what's up?
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
So all I have to tell all these naysayers, if what Trump just didn't do in Iran and also out in Venezuela, if number one, all these other wars that we've been involved in that have taken years and many lives and billions and trillions of dollars, we don't need to go with our intelligence and our ability, our equipment and everything else. There is no reason why there should be any war that should last more than 24 hours anymore.
Yeah.
What they did was so strategic that we should not ever lose a life or a piece of equipment in a 5-year war, a 1-year war, or anything.
Absolutely.
It's just amazing what they did. And as far as all these people saying, oh, he's a dictator, he's taken over a country, blah, 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 it has to be done because the guy was not legitimate down there. And, he destroyed Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
And the people, how come on one side of Manhattan, you got all these white liberal dimwits standing out there saying, hands off Venezuela. But on the other street, you've got a million of them,
mm-hmm.
crying and, for the liberation of that country.
That's right. That's right.
So, I just had this conversation with my son the other day. He goes, oh, Mom, so many people are mad at Trump right now.
Why?
And I'm like, why? And he's like, they're like, they're not going to vote for the Democrat. I said, no matter what, he's better than anything else that was available. And, even if you're not happy with him, why would you not? Because he's so much better than what our other option was.
We're seeing Venezuelans, not just in the United States and in Spain, but in Venezuela, celebrated in the streets that this has happened. But it's nice for these white liberals to defend putting the dictator back in power that has them literally eating dogs. My daughter,
right?
My daughter has a friend who lives in Venezuela. He's a Twitch streamer, right? And I called her. I talked to my daughter last night and I said, have you talked to your friend in Venezuela? Yeah. And she says, oh yeah, he's okay. He's very happy. And she texted me a screenshot. He sent a message to me. And he's, my daughter is 26, so he's about her age. He lives in Venezuela. He makes a living as a Twitch streamer. And the reason he does that is he can get paid in cryptocurrency because Venezuelan money is useless. Yep. And he's feeding his family using cryptocurrency in Venezuela, gaming all day. I mean, there's worse ways to make money, but that's what we have. And he said, he sent a message. He said, tell your dad this is the happiest day of my life, he said. The happiest day of my life.
Well, there was that one picture where they were taking Maduro's big poster down off the side of that building.
I saw that.
One lady literally stopped her car and got out and started cheering. These people feel liberated. Why is it that the people in this country are that hateful of President Trump that they have to right away start up trying to push a narrative?
And you've got Marjorie Trader Green out there who's trashing. What he's doing in Latin America is as America first as it gets. The border will not be an issue anymore when he's done. The border will not be an issue.
No, and neither will the drugs.
And the drugs, exactly.
I know many people whose lives have been destroyed by drugs.
Oh yeah.
And I know people who've lost their children. We all do. And you know what? It was all unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
It was all unnecessary. And it wasn't like an oops, oh, we added a little too much to that batch. Oh, we didn't get the batch right. They were doing it purposely. You look at our society now with the people who are all drugged out and bent over, and they've got skin-eating infections, and they were literally trying to destroy us. They were trying to take us down from within.
And by the way, they were doing a very good job of it. They were doing a very good job of it.
Absolutely, they were. And the only thing I go back to is if you go way back into like the early 80s and 90s, anytime President Trump was asked, are you going to go into politics? He goes, well, if I ever felt that it was so bad that I had to, I would. I only wish that he had jumped in maybe 15 years sooner.
No, the time was right, and I'll tell you why. Obama, who was a disaster, and Obama seems conservative compared.
He's where the real downfall started.
Well, everything we're dealing with is because of Obama. But you look back at Obama, he kind of seems conservative compared to these new Democrats. But he's the one that brought all the Somalians in and did all this stuff. Because his goal was to destroy our country. Yeah. But Obama was so radical and such a disaster. It paved the way for Trump. Right? So if we didn't have the 8 years of Obama's disastrous presidency, we may not have had Trump as president. So timing's everything.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But it's, to me, it's just, I just wish we hadn't gotten to this point. Because back in the 80s when I was growing up, we were patriotic and we were,
Not the Democrats. Not Democrats.
Well, maybe where I'm living, it wasn't so bad, but yeah, we were where I am. I'm in northern New Jersey in farmland, and we were, and but even now around here, you've got a lot of the people that came up out of the city, after 9/11, and now you do have your pockets,
yes,
that are that are liberal weirdos.
That's true.
But
very true.
It's a shame.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hear the roosters calling, but I appreciate the call. We'll talk again. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Take care. Take care. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
PJ from Broward.
Hey, PJ. What's up?
Yeah. Yesterday was kind of interesting. They destroyed the alma mater in Caracas of a friend of ours, my wife and I, Gustavo. The Bolivar and Naval Academy was destroyed.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I was trying to call him. I don't think he was grieving because he was an officer. This guy was actually, I think, graduated from the academy, and he was an officer under Chavez in the Venezuelan Navy.
The original, the first reporting said that we blew up Chavez's mausoleum. I don't know. Is that true? Do you know? In the original,
I think they did. Yeah, they.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. They blew that up.
Oh well.
But you know what? They missed. They try to get the top general. This guy. His name is. I can believe his South American name is guy. His first name is Vladimir Padrino, and they try to they hit his home, but unfortunately he actually maybe he knew ahead of time. He was in his bunker at the time sleeping, so they missed him.
Yeah, well.
But anyway, my friend, this is pretty funny. My friend Gustavo, he was an officer in the Venezuelan Navy. So he told me the conditions were pretty bad on the ship that he was on.
Yeah.
I says, really? Well, I said, like, what did you guys eat? Because in the U.S. Navy, everybody eats really pretty well. So he says, oh, officers, we got rice and beans.
Oh my goodness.
I says, are you kidding? He says, yeah, so I said, wait a minute, you got rice, and what the hell did the enlisted men get? You know what he told me? He said they got rice or beans.
Rice or beans. Oh my God. Around what year was that? When was that?
It was probably about 15 years ago.
Oh my goodness. There was no obesity issue though.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, can you imagine that? They feed them so horrible. That's why, you know what? That's why the American military doesn't have too much of a problem, because the average soldier and sailor in Venezuela, if you got to eat, you got to have a choice of rice or beans. You're really not going to be too enthusiastic about defending leaders of living high on a. They're living high on a hog. What do you think the average soldier must be thinking?
I cannot imagine.
They're not going to die for them.
Nope, not at all. No. Well, that's an interesting story. Rice or beans. I like that. That's good. Which would you take, rice or beans? I think I would take the rice probably.
Yeah, me too. I'm
more
not that much of a beans. I like rice and beans, but if I had to have a choice, definitely go with the rice.
The rice are probably more filling. It's probably more filling the rice than the beans.
Yeah, you could do more stuff with it too. Yeah, but that was pretty. I said, wait a minute, that was it. He says the only option is you gotta bring your own food. You know.
Oh my goodness! While you're in the Navy,
people did that.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, would sneak it on the ship. You know, like
it's terrible.
You know, American ships, they sneak liquor on there. Oh, by the way, one other thing. The other impression I had yesterday was that Renee's the cost of Renee's crack just doubled.
Cocaine doubled. The cocaine prices have doubled. I would hope.
Yeah. I was thinking about Renee. His prices of cocaine just doubled.
Oh, okay. Well, good to talk to you, PJ.
Okay.
All right. We'll take care. Take care. Yep. Now, you guys, I have a second YouTube channel that I vlog on. In fact, I made a vlog today. You know, I did a live stream early this morning. And after my live stream, I went and made a vlog out in the middle of the Everglades. And my other YouTube channel, if you guys could subscribe to it, I'd appreciate it. It's called Main Street Moments. Main Street Moments on YouTube. And you can see today I went deep into the Florida Everglades and made this really cool vlog. And you can see these alligators there. But I do all kinds of cool stuff. I went to this restaurant here in South Florida with my daughter for lunch where the waiters and waitresses are robots. I mean, like real robots. I do all kinds of things here. I went to the grave of Leslie Nielsen, right, from Airplane, who's buried here in South Florida. And here's one that's really cool. I went to a fan replica set where they've actually made television shows on YouTube called Star Trek Continues to the sets of Star Trek. Here's the video where I was on the streets of Jacksonville and almost was murdered while I was vlogging. I'm not kidding. And all kinds of stuff. So it's Main Street Moments. Go and check out my channel. I've got a lot of cool vlogs that I do there. And I add new vlogs all the time. It's called Main Street Moments on YouTube. All right. So make sure you check it out and subscribe, guys. Okay. So let me get to some of the audio sound bites. A caller earlier was talking about Marco Rubio on the Sunday shows. Marco Rubio, the current president of Venezuela, he was on Face the Nation today, and this Face the Nation anchorette, Margaret Brennan, she's just freaking out here. She's hysterical.
I'm curious because you just described the regime as still in place, essentially. I mean,
see, this is what we were talking about, how you got to keep the administrators in place so that the country doesn't collapse.
I'm curious because you just described the regime as still in place, essentially. I mean, I'm curious why the Trump administration decided to leave it intact and only arrest Nicolás Maduro and his wife, the person who controls the police, the chief thug, Cabello. He's the interior minister. He's been indicted by the United States. He was in that indictment the administration released.
She wants us to arrest everybody.
There's a $25 million price on his head. He's still in place. The defense minister, who has deep ties to Russia, $15 million price on his head.
That's who PJ was talking about, Vladimir.
He is still in place. I'm confused. Are they still wanted by the United States? Why didn't you arrest them if you are taking out the narco-terrorist regime?
You're confused? I don't know why that's confusing to you.
They're still in power.
It's very simple. You're not going to go in and wrap up. But you can't go. You're going to go in and suck up 5 people. They're already complaining about this one operation. Exactly. Imagine the howls we would have from everybody else if we actually had to go and stay there 4 days to capture 4 other people. We got the top priority. The number one person on the list was the guy who claimed to be the president of the country that he was not. And he was arrested along with his wife, who was also indicted. And that was a pretty sophisticated and frankly complicated operation.
It was.
It is not easy to land helicopters in the middle of the largest military base in the country. The guy lived on a military base. Land within 3 minutes, kick down his door, grab him, put him in handcuffs, read him his rights, put him in a helicopter, and leave the country without losing any American or any American assets. That's not an easy mission. And you're asking me, why didn't we do that in 5 other places at the same time? I mean, that's absurd.
I'm
exactly. What an idiot. But when she's sitting around with all her liberal friends, this moron, she thought she had a question that was going to expose Marco Rubio. And by the way, the Vladimir's the one guy PJ was talking about. He had gotten away. But this is the thing. Okay, we're there now. So who's to say we're not going to get them? Now, I'm going to show you this video, and I don't know if this is real or not. Can you guys let me know? You can either call me or let me know in the chat or the comments if this is real. It says here that this is the paddy wagon that Maduro was in, and they're driving through the streets of New York with the side and the back doors open. Now, they eventually closed them, but they're traveling around with Maduro with all the doors open on the paddy wagon. Is this video real? I saw this video just a little while ago, and I'm like, is this real? I don't know. You guys let me know. Look at this. This is hilarious if it's real. Okay, so here comes the paddy wagon, and look, the side door's open. You see Maduro in there. The back is open, and you can see Maduro sitting in there. He's all blindfolded, you know. And they're saying that this is Maduro. Is that true? Is that him? Now they do shut the doors, and then they speed off, but they still got the side door open. I mean, that looks like it. I don't know. That looks real to me. The streets of New York, but I don't know. If anybody knows, let me know, because that's pretty hilarious. I got a kick out of that. But now this is Tom Cotton on CNN with Dana. It's pretty funny, I know, with Dana Bash.
Who's not running Venezuela anymore is Nicolás Maduro, and that's a great thing, and it's a great day for America and for the people of Venezuela and really the civilized world. Nicolás Maduro was a indicted drug trafficker in U.S. courts. He was an illegitimate communist dictator. His drugs had killed hundreds of Arkansans, thousands of Americans, and he was in league with anti-American countries around the world like Cuba and Iran or Islamic terrorists. It's a good thing that he's in a jail now in New York City. The president said that when the president said the United States is going to be running Venezuela, it means that the new leaders of Venezuela need to meet our demands. Our demands are now what they were before yesterday, that we want them to stop the drug trafficking, we want them to stop the weapons trafficking, we want them to expel the Cubans and the Iranians and the Islamic radicals, and we want them to return to the civilized world and be a good neighbor that contributes to stability, order, and prosperity in our own backyard.
You know, it's amazing. The Sunday shows today were really funny because the liberal host, as you can see on all of these Sunday shows, are so far out of their league, and they have these questions that they think are just going to jam up all the Republicans, and they all look like fools when they explain these very common sense things, like you just heard from Tom Cotton or from Marco Rubio with Brennan before that. You know, now this was amazing. This photograph was taken last night at Mar-a-Lago. Elon Musk had a private dinner with the president and Melania. And now, of course, you've heard the story that Elon is giving free Starlink internet to Venezuela, which is a darn good thing. But, you know, I've had a theory, and you guys can let me know if you agree with this or not in the live chat or in the comments. But I don't think that President Trump and Elon Musk ever had a falling out. You know, Elon Musk was at Mar-a-Lago on New Year's Eve, too, at the party. I think that they pretended to have a falling out because the liberals were firebombing the Tesla dealerships. And they did that to save the lives of Elon's employees at Tesla. Now maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's how I view it, because they're too buddy-buddy right now. I think it was a big, false thing they did to save lives. Now, if you would like to support my channel, my podcast, and all the content I bring you, become a Patreon supporter. There's a link in the description of the episode, wherever you're listening or watching, to my Patreon page. Or you can go to patreon.com/Real Brian Craig Show. And when you become a Patreon supporter, you're obviously supporting my program and all my content, but you do get some perks and benefits for that, including commercial-free editions of all of my podcast episodes. Like this episode you're listening to right now, Patreon supporters will have access to a commercial-free edition of this and every podcast episode in video form, okay, on the Patreon page. I also do exclusive live streams just for Patreon supporters on the Patreon platform. It's a troll-free zone, no liberals allowed. And like last night, I did a live stream just on Patreon for Patreon supporters. And you get access to a lot of other things that my wife and I both put on the Patreon page that no one else sees. If you become a top Patreon supporter, you get your name up on the screen here on YouTube, and you get a live on-air thank you shout-out on every episode. So the names you'll hear now are my top Patreon supporters. I want to thank SF Jr., Christine, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, Nick called in today. And some of these are familiar names you see in the chat all the time. Wesley, Doris, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, Lee Zepp, Shauna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, Tina, David, Laura, Rob, Wes, Sue, Janice, Teresa, Irene, and Doris. These are my top Patreon supporters. Thank you so much, guys. And again, there's a link in the description of this and every episode to my Patreon page, and you get access to all those things that I shared. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. My name is Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. I will talk to you next time. Thanks for tuning in.